today I wanted to show you our Saint Croix sheep. We raise Saint Croix sheep on a very small scale here on about 2 acres of grazable pasture lands. We have right now a total of 10 sheep, 5 breeding ewes, 1 breeding ram, and then 4 grow out rams. So why did we decide on Saint Croix sheep? Well, our objective in raising sheep is to take care of our pastures. We didn't want to buy a tractor for $10,000 just to mow 2 acres. We could hire someone to come out and do that for us, and that would be more cost effective, arguably. But we decided to get sheep to graze the pastures, and they do an excellent job at that. However, we did not want to bring on a lot of additional work for ourselves, and so we'll talk a little more about the reasons why we chose Saint Croix. So why Saint Croix? Saint Croix sheep are hair sheep, which means you don't have to shear them at all, which was really important for us. It's hard in our area to find people to come out and shear just a few sheep. It's even hard for the commercial producers who have hundreds of sheep to find someone, and it's pretty costly when you do find them. So we didn't want to have that burden adding into our cost model here. We're just trying to manage our pastures and raise some meat because we enjoy lamb meat. So that's the second reason for the hair sheep, is their meat is very mild and not gamey flavored like some people associate lamb meat with. Here's one of our holdover Dorper ewes. So we actually started out with this one and we're going to breed Dorper. However, as time went on, we added the Saint Croix because of their particular qualities. We wanted to try out both and see which we liked better and fit our management style the best. And we ultimately decided to go with the Saint Croix. However, we are very pleased with the additional muscling that the cross Dorpers add to the Saint Croix. So we did retain 2 Dorper ewes so that we can continue to produce that cross on our homestead. Another reason for choosing the Saint Croix in particular, there's many other meat sheep breeds, but the Saint Croix are known to be very good mothers and have good mothering instinct. And we've been breeding them here on our farm now for 2 years. This will be our, is it 2 years or 3 years? I will have to check. 2020 was our first lamb. So we've had 3 lambing seasons, and they have done very, very well as mothers. So we really appreciate that, because obviously the more lambs that you have to raise yourself, the more cost involved. Another added benefit to choosing the Saint Croix is their parasite resistance. So we live in a very wet climate for at least half of the year, if not more, here in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. And it gets wet, it gets muddy, it gets gross. So as you can see, that's their wintertime housing, and it rains a lot here. It gets pretty wet, and so parasites are something that is an issue to deal with, and we're hoping, and we have seen with the Saint Croix, that they do not seem to be as susceptible as the Dorpers on our land. So right now it's breeding time here on the farm, and let's see if I can show you. So these guys here have been hard at work breeding the next generation. So our 5 ewes here were put in with Lego for breeding on October 9th. So we are expecting lambs around early to mid-March. The gestation time for them is 5 months, about 150 days, give or take 5 days. So we did see successful breeding with this one, Hope, on day 1. So I do expect her possibly to be first. So we'll see how that goes. And we're expecting twins out of everybody. Our Saint Croix girls, 2 of them, Honey and Dew, and Lego, actually all came from triplet births. So they're in really good condition this year at breeding. So it's possible we may see our first triplets this year. Another reason we decided to go with the Saint Croix was just our particular circumstance. So we had, as I mentioned, a Dorper flock. We had a Dorper ram, and the Dorper ram, he was a good boy, but he was bigger than our Saint Croix ram, and also a little bit more potential to be aggressive, we noticed, out of him. So I'm not saying that that's a general truth out of these animals. That was just our experience as we worked with them on our farm. And it was important to us to be able to trust our ram with the weaned ram lambs, because we use him as, we refer to him as our Manny. We just weren't sure how our Dorper ram would do as much. So we just had to make the call on 2 acres of grazable pasture land. We just didn't really have the space available to maintain 2 breeding flocks. In this pasture behind me here is where we have our grow out rams. They get this pasture and the adjacent pasture over here. It's winter time now. There's not a lot of forage out there for them. We're supplementing them pretty heavily with hay at the moment, but they're keeping up their condition really well, and we're really happy with this year's grow outs. And another reason is the management tasks are pretty few and far between on these girls. So we trim their hooves about 3 times a year. We give them their vaccinations, and we have to supplement with selenium here. Our soils are deficient, so we give them that. But other than a mineral supplement, hay and pasture, it's really all that these guys require. So since I said we got these sheep to maintain the land, when we moved into this property, this is an old grass seed farm. It hasn't been used for grass seed in a very long time. There's been no animals on this property in maybe ever. So when we started, the grass in some areas of this property was taller than me. I'm 5'3". Call it Jurassic grass. Through the years that we've had the sheep on the property, there's been varying conditions, droughts, floods, storms. So we're learning, as we're new to sheep farming, what all this means for the land. But right now, in December, there's not a lot of grass out here for them. So as I mentioned, we are supplementing them with hay. They get alfalfa. They're about to switch over to a valley grass hay supplement. We will keep an eye on condition of these ewes as they're all bred. As I mentioned, they're starting out really good. Look at Mason Bee there. She gave us really nice crossbred twins last year. These two, they're all looking really good to me. So that's kind of how they're doing on the land. Let's see, how are the grow out rams doing? So we do have multiple paddocks set up here, and I'll talk about our grazing strategy. And here's kind of a baseline of where we're starting. Dead of winter, nothing's been growing here actively for weeks. Our daylight is below 9 hours a day right now. They say nothing grows until you have about 10 hours of daylight, which won't happen for us again until the beginning of February. Okay, our grazing strategy and plan. So this has kind of evolved as we've been learning and working with the sheep more and more. We're trying to make sure that they've got as much grass as we can provide off of the land as possible. So the first things I want to mention are, it may be hard to pick up on the camera, but we have a total of 6 different paddocks that we currently rotate the sheep through. Right now they have access to 4 of them. Okay, so in the winter time now, we've given the grow out rams access to this field and that field. There they are, happy as little clams. And in the evening time, right before dark, they get some hay. And then our breeding group, Hope, Faith, and everybody else down there, they have this big field, which is about an acre. And then they have an adjacent field back that way. So they've got this brush area that when it's growing season, there's blackberries and trees in there. So they eat the leaves off of that and the brush out of that as much as they can reach. And then there's also one in the next field that they have available. So our fields that we're fallowing right now are this one that I'm walking around in. This is actually our backyard. We have a berry patch, there's a chicken run, and they love this paddock because they can come over and harass us up close when they want something. And then we also have barn over here that we're going to be remodeling for the sheep. That's where they're going to be lambing, and that's attached to another paddock that's about 0.2 acres. And I should have mentioned the ram grow outs between their 2 paddocks is about half an acre. And then, so the breeding ewes right now have about 1.25 acres. The little paddock next to them is about 1/4 acre. And I'll show you a map of this so it will make a little more sense. Here's a diagram of our grazing pastures. So as you can see in the lower left-hand corner is where our lambing barn is. And the red sheep paddock in the center is the large field where the breeding ewe group is. And where the orange sheep are where the grow out rams are. The breeding ewes have access to the paddock that is adjacent to them on the left The grow out rams have the paddock adjacent to them to the south or the bottom of the screen. The sixth paddock the sheep have is this one, and this is the remainder of the backyard. I don't know how many acres it is. I'll show it on the map. But this paddock contains our drain field. So we are selective about what times of year that we let the sheep on there. But we do open that up. It adjoins the shop yard there where they're going to be lambing. So there's a gate where they can get in. And then this is really nice grass that we're kind of stockpiling for them for when they have lambs. We did that last year and it worked really well for us. The lambs ended up growing out much faster and the ewes kept their condition really, really well. So we had a good grass growing year last year, which we're learning that makes all the difference. Thanks for spending some time today on the farm with me. I hope that was informative for you. A discussion about the reasons why we chose Saint Croix. I'm sure there's something I left out, but that's the general sum of it. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe and hit the bell so that you can be notified when I upload new videos about life on a small acreage with sheep.